Hello students, today we will learn how the exception is handled by Python runtime system in detail. Then we will have a brief description about assert statement in Python. Look at the exception handling steps. Step 1. When an error occurs, Python interpreter creates an object called the exception object. This object contains the information about the error like its type, file name, and position in the program where the error has occurred. So what it says, when an error occurs, Python interpreter will create an object. What is that object called? Exception object. Type of the exception, a name of the file where the exception has occurred, and the place of the exception. It means the position in which line the exception has occurred. What is step 2? This object is handed over to the runtime system so that it can find an appropriate code to handle this particular exception. This process of creating an exception object and handing it over to the runtime system is called throwing an exception. After creating the exception object, that should be handed over to Python runtime system, because Python runtime system will search for the except block to handle the appropriate exception. What is step 3? The runtime system searches the entire program for a block of code called exception handler that can handle the raised exception. Python runtime system will search for exception handler. So exception handler is nothing but exception blocks. Step 4. The runtime system first searches for the method in which the error has occurred and the exception has been raised. If the exception handler is not found in that method, then it searches the method from which this method was called. This hierarchical search in reverse order continues till the exception handler is found. This entire list of methods is known as call stack. So let me explain this concept with a simple example. Look at this programming snippet. Here we have three methods: method 1, method 2, method 3. Method 1 has only one line, that is raise value error. We are raising value error in method 1. Inside method 2, we are calling method 1. Inside method 3, we have try except block. Inside try block, I am calling method 2. Method 2 might throw an exception, so that I have except block. So I am catching value error and printing the statement as value error is raised. Now look at the step 4. The runtime system first searches for the method in which the error has occurred. Here we have raised the exception inside method 1, that is our current method. If the exception handler is not found in that method, so method 1 does not contain any except block, so there is no exception handler in method 1. Then it searches the method from which this method was called. Now Python runtime system will go back to method 2. Why? Because from method 2 we are calling method 1. Again, there is no except block in method 2. So it will go back to method 3. Why? Because from method 3 we are calling method 2. So from method 1, runtime system goes back to method 2. From method 2, runtime system goes back to method 3. So in method 3, I have written the code to handle the exception. I have written except value error. So since we have raised value error, that will be caught by except block and it will print value error is raised. So this hierarchical search in reverse order continues till the exception handler is found. This entire list of method is called as call stack. Look at the call stack. On top you have method 1. If the except block is not found in method 1, runtime system will go back to method 2 and check whether there is any except block. If accept block is not found in method 2 also, it will go back to method 3 and search for the accept block. When a suitable handler is found in the call stack, it is executed by the runtime process. In our previous example, the suitable handler is found in method 3 so that it is executed by the runtime process. This process of executing a suitable handler is known as catching the exception. So we have written the except block in method 3. What types of except block we have written? Value error block. Since we have raised value error, except value error block will catch the exception. That process is called as catching the exception. If the runtime system is not able to find an appropriate exception after searching all the methods in the call stack, then the program execution stops. Suppose if the except block is not found in method 1, method 2 as well as in method 3, then the program execution stops abnormally. So look at the diagram. Initially, an error is encountered in a method. So when the error is encountered in a method, what happens? Python interpreter will create an object. Okay, what is that object called as exception object? That contains type of the exception, name of the file, and position of the exception. Once the object is created, that object will be handed over to the runtime system. So that is called as throwing an exception. Creating an object and handing over the object to the runtime system is called as throwing exception. Once the runtime system receives the object, it will just search for the exception handler, except block in the current method. If the current method does not have exception handler, nothing but except blocks, then it will go and search for the methods in the call stack in reverse sequence that we already discussed. It will go back to the previous methods. From there, the current method is called and searches for the exception handler. It will be keep on searching in the reverse order. Suppose if the exception handler is found in any of the methods, it executes the code. It will catch the exception. If exception handler or except blocks are not found in any of the methods in the call stack, then the program terminates abnormally. Now let's discuss about assert statement in Python. Just imagine you are developing a project. The project has thousands of lines of codes. So you might make mistake, right? So sometimes some part of the code might throw exceptions. Just imagine you are finished developing the project and handing over the project to the user. When the user starts using the project, it shows some error or it stops executing abnormally. That shouldn't happen, right? During developing process, to find out the exception or to check which part of the code might throw exception, you can use a special statement in Python that is called as assert statement. So let me explain assert statement with a simple example. I will create a very simple user defined function def negative check, and I will accept a variable. I will name it as number. Before performing any operation on number, I am checking whether the number is negative number. If it is negative number, we shouldn't perform any operation. We should display a message. Otherwise, it should return the square of the number. So I'll write assert and checks the condition whether number is greater than or is equal to 0. If it is less than 0, then it should print no negative number. Otherwise, it should return square of the number into number. Now I will call the function negative check. I'll pass a negative number -1, okay, and I will print this. Print. Next, I will pass a positive number. Copy, paste. I will pass 10. So now run the program. It gives an assertion error and it displays a message that no negative number. We know that we have called this function twice. Since this line throws an exception, next line doesn't work. Now if the programmer uses this method, he knows that here it gives an error. So he can resolve that problem. Now if I comment this, run the program, it gives 100 because no assertion error. So what we should understand, if the condition inside assert is true, then it will go for next statement. If the condition is false, then it will print the message. Usually the students get confused. They think that if the condition is true, it will print the message. It is not like that. If the condition is false, it will print the message. If the condition is true, then it will go for the next line. Let us go through the theory part of assert statement. The assert statement is used to test an expression in program code. If the condition of assert statement is false, it will raise an assert error. Syntax. So what is the syntax? Assert is a keyword. Then we have to write the condition or pass the condition. Then we have to write the error message. If the condition is false, error message will be displayed with assertion error. So I have included the textbook syntax also. We have assert keyword, then expression, nothing but the condition, then argument, nothing but the error message. The assert statement is generally used in the beginning of the function or function call to check for the valid input. Okay, so here you can see that we have a negative check function. So assert statement is the first line in the function. If the condition is false, none of the remaining statements in the function will be executed. The function checks for value of variable number. If the number is negative value, assertion error is thrown. The subsequent statement will not be executed. If the number is a positive value, assertion is not thrown, so it will print the square of the number. We have covered almost all the topics of the chapter. I skipped few points which are not very important for the exam. Now we will just recall the important points. The first point, Python categorizes exceptions into distinct types so that specific exception handlers can be created for each type. So mainly we have two types of exceptions, user defined exception and built-in exceptions. We learn different types of built-in exceptions, value error, index error, keyboard interrupt, assertion error, zero division error, etc. The segment of code where there is any possibility of error or exception is placed inside one block. What is that block called as? The block is called as try block. The code to be executed in case of exception has occurred is placed inside another block. What is that block called as? That block is called as except block. The statement for detection and reporting the exception do not affect the main logic of the program. The compiler or interpreter keeps track of exact position where the error has occurred. Exception handling can be done for both user-defined and built-in exceptions. I hope all the topics of this chapter is clear to you. If you have any doubt, please let me know in the comment section. Please like the videos, subscribe my channel, share this channel to all the second PUC and class 12 computer science students. Thank you.